My own son looked me in the eye across a conference table I had helped pay for with 32 years of my life, and told me that security would walk me out. He didn't flinch. He didn't look away. That was the thing that surprised me most, that he had grown so comfortable with cruelty that he could deliver it sitting down, hands folded, like he was recapping a quarterly earnings call. Half the board couldn't meet my gaze. The other half were doing a poor job hiding their satisfaction. I remember thinking, very clearly, in that precise and almost weightless moment, they have no idea what they've done. I didn't say that out loud. I'm getting ahead of myself, though. To understand what happened in that boardroom, and what happened after, you need to understand what came before. You need to understand what I built, what I gave, and what I was careful enough, all those years ago, to keep for myself. My name is Carol Ann Beaumont. I am 62 years old. I was born in Dayton, Ohio, the youngest of 4 children, and I have never once in my life been the kind of woman who expects anyone to give her anything. My mother worked the night shift at a hospital laundry for 20 years. My father ran a small engine repair shop out of our garage until his knees gave out. I grew up understanding that the things worth having were the things you made yourself, with your own hands, over a very long time. I met Raymond Beaumont when we were both 24 years old. He was working as a mechanical engineer at a small industrial firm in Columbus, and I had just finished my business degree and was putting in long hours as an operations coordinator at a logistics company. We met at a hardware trade show, which sounds hopelessly unglamorous, I know, but that's the truth of it. He was standing in front of a vendor booth examining a pneumatic fitting with the same focused intensity most men reserve for sporting events, and I made a joke about it, and he laughed, and that was that. We were married 14 months later. We started Beaumont Precision Components in 1991 out of a leased commercial space in suburban Columbus. Raymond had the engineering mind. I had the business instincts. We had very little money, a second-hand CNC machine, and an absolutely unreasonable amount of optimism. The early years were genuinely hard in the way that romantic stories about entrepreneurship tend to leave out: the eviction notices you avoid by 36 hours, the payroll you cover by drawing down a home equity line, the years where you don't take a salary at all and just hope the business will eventually be able to pay you back. Raymond and I went 7 years before we took a real vacation. 7 years. Our son Marcus was born in 1993, and his first birthday party happened in the break room of our shop because we couldn't afford to rent a space and didn't want to ask either of our families for money. But we were building something real. Raymond had an extraordinary gift for identifying inefficiencies in industrial fastening systems, the small mechanical problems that cost manufacturers time and money at scale. He'd spend evenings sketching at our kitchen table, while I went over the books, and I'd look up and see him completely lost in some problem involving tolerances or material stress points, and I'd feel this enormous pride in him. Not just love, though that was always there, but genuine admiration. He was one of the most brilliant, quietly stubborn people I've ever known. The invention that changed everything came in 2003. We called it the BPC interlocking retention system, an internal name, dry as dust, but the mechanism itself was elegant. Raymond had developed a new approach to industrial fastener locking that dramatically reduced failure rates in high vibration environments. The automotive and aerospace industries had been losing enormous amounts of money and, in some cases, actual lives to fastener failures under continuous vibration stress. Raymond's systems solved that problem in a way that was simpler, cheaper, and more reliable than anything currently available. I remember sitting across from him at that kitchen table. Marcus was about 10 years old by then, already asleep in the back of the house, and Raymond showing me the prototype and explaining how it worked, and even I, with my business degree and my spreadsheet mind, could see immediately that what he had in his hands was something genuinely important. We filed for patent protection in early 2004. This is where I need to slow down and be precise, because the details matter enormously. Raymond and I had always operated as full partners in everything related to the business. But when it came time to file the patents and formalize the ownership of the intellectual property, we sat down with our attorney, a wonderful man named Gerald Hofstetter, who had been handling our business legal work for years, and we made a deliberate decision. Raymond would retain full ownership of certain core engineering patents. I would retain full ownership of the BPC retention system patent and the licensing rights attached to it. We did this partly for estate planning reasons, partly for liability reasons, and partly because Gerald had advised us that separating intellectual property ownership from company operational ownership could be a useful strategic protection in the event of any future disputes or financial difficulties. At the time, it felt like routine housekeeping. We signed the documents, filed them correctly, and moved on. The BPC retention system became the backbone of everything. By 2006, we had licensing agreements with 4 major automotive suppliers. By 2009, aerospace contracts followed. The company grew from 12 employees to nearly 200. We moved into a proper facility. We hired a real management team. Raymond and I stepped back slightly from day-to-day operations as Marcus grew up and began, with visible eagerness, to insert himself into the business. Marcus had always been smart, confident, a little impatient with complexity, the way some very intelligent people are. He wanted results, not process. He graduated from Ohio State with a business degree in 2015 and came straight to work at BPC, which Raymond and I were genuinely happy about. There is a particular satisfaction in handing something you've built to your own child. We wanted to believe he understood what the company meant, not just as a financial asset but as a life's work. We introduced him carefully. He started in operations, then moved to sales, then to business development. He was good at all of it. He was charming with clients, sharp in negotiations, and he had a talent for spotting market opportunities that I privately thought he'd gotten from me. He also, as the years went on, developed a talent for surrounding himself with people who reflected his ambitions back at him rather than challenging them. His wife Brittany came into the picture around 2018, and she was, I want to be fair here, because she wasn't a villain. She was just a particular kind of person. She was enormously focused on social status and corporate image. She had opinions about what a CEO's family should look like, what events they should attend, what kind of leadership Marcus should project. I noticed, gradually, that Marcus began to talk differently after he married her. More corporate. More concerned with optics. He started using phrases I hadn't heard from him before, talking about brand alignment and leadership transitions, and the need to project a modern executive image. These weren't things Marcus naturally thought about. These were things Brittany thought about, and Marcus had started wearing them like a second skin. Raymond died in March of 2021. Pancreatic cancer, diagnosed in November, gone by March. 4 months from diagnosis to funeral. I don't know how to convey what that kind of loss does to a person who has built an entire life alongside someone else. There is the grief itself, which is its own enormous territory, and then there is this second, quieter devastation. The dismantling of the future you assumed you were going to have. Raymond and I had talked about retiring in the next few years. We talked about traveling. We talked about spending more time with whatever grandchildren might eventually appear. All of that disappeared with him. I threw myself back into the company. It was the only thing that made sense. I came back to the office 2 weeks after the funeral, which several people told me was too soon and which I knew was absolutely necessary. Work was structure. Work was something Raymond and I had built together, and being there felt, in some strange way, like being close to him. Marcus became CEO 6 months after Raymond died. It was a planned transition. Raymond and I had discussed it in his final weeks, and I supported it genuinely. I remained on the board as vice chairwoman and kept my role as chief innovation officer. I believed Marcus was ready. I believed in him. I want that to be absolutely clear, because what came next wasn't something I saw coming all at once. It crept up on me the way most betrayals do, slowly, in small increments, each one easy to explain away in the moment. The first thing I noticed was that Marcus began hiring outside consultants and executives without consulting me. Not just without consulting me, without informing me until after the decisions were made. A new chief strategy officer named Derek Pullman arrived in early 2022. Derek was 41, polished, had an MBA from Wharton, and had never spent a day of his professional life manufacturing anything. He spoke exclusively in abstract strategic frameworks and had a habit of referring to BPC's 30-year history as legacy infrastructure, in a tone that suggested legacy was not a compliment. I did not like Derek Pullman, and I made the mistake of saying so to Marcus directly, which I believe caused Marcus to trust Derek even more. The second thing I noticed was that Marcus began scheduling board meetings at times he knew would be difficult for me. I still had family obligations. I was helping manage some of my late husband's estate affairs. I missed 2 meetings in early 2022, and both times I later discovered that significant decisions had been made in my absence that I hadn't been properly notified about. When I raised this with Marcus privately, he said, and I remember this very clearly, "Mom, we have to be able to move fast. The market doesn't wait." Which was true enough on its face, and which I allowed to placate me more than it should have. The third thing, the thing that genuinely should have been my alarm bell, came in the fall of 2022. I had been developing an updated version of the retention system, refining it for applications in next-generation electric vehicle manufacturing. It was significant work. The EV market was exploding, and BPC had an extraordinary opportunity to position itself as a key supplier to that industry. I brought my proposal to Marcus and Derek in a meeting I'd requested specifically for that purpose. I had a full presentation. I had market projections. I had prototype specifications and preliminary results from our R&D team. Derek listened to my entire presentation and then said, very calmly, that BPC was pivoting away from an inventor-dependent model and toward systematized innovation processes. I asked him what that meant in plain English. He said it meant the company needed Innovation that could be replicated and scaled without relying on any single individual's institutional knowledge. I looked at Marcus. Marcus was looking at his phone. I drove home that evening more unsettled than I'd been in years. I called my old friend Patricia. We'd been close since our sons were in elementary school together, and I told her what had happened, and she said, "Carol, be careful," and I said I was probably reading too much into it. I wasn't reading too much into it. What I didn't know then, and what I pieced together much later from things people told me after the fact, was that Derek Pullman had been coaching Marcus for months on what he called a leadership modernization strategy. The core of it was this: the company needed to shed its association with its founding generation and reposition itself for institutional investors and potential acquisition. Derek had identified a private equity firm that was interested in BPC, and the PE firm had expressed concern about what they called key person dependency, meaning the fact that so much of the company's value was tied to the knowledge and relationships of its founders. In Derek's analysis, I was the primary obstacle to the acquisition. So they planned to remove me. They did it in February of 2023, during a full board meeting, with 7 board members present and the senior executive team seated along the wall. Marcus had called the meeting to discuss Q4 results and 2023 planning. I came prepared with materials on the EV initiative. I never got to present them. 40 minutes into the meeting, Marcus set down his agenda and said he wanted to address something important. He said BPC needed to enter a new phase of leadership, one defined by professional management structures rather than family governance. He said he valued everything I had contributed, but that the board had determined the company would benefit from a formal separation of the founding generation from active executive roles. He said he was asking me to step down from my position as Chief Innovation Officer. I said, very quietly, "Marcus, are you firing me?" He said, "We're asking you to transition to an advisory capacity." The distinction was insulting. An advisory capacity meant no operational authority, no staff, no budget, and a title that sounded important only to people who didn't know better. I looked at the board members. 3 of them were people Marcus had appointed after Raymond died. 2 of them were the original members who had been with us since the early days. One of those 2, a man named Bill Hargrove who had known Raymond since college, was staring at the table. The other one, a woman named Sandra Chu, was looking at me with an expression I can only describe as apologetic grief. I said, "I'd like to hear this from the full board. Is this a board decision or a CEO decision?" Derek Pullman, who had no business speaking at that moment, said, "Carol, this has been thoroughly discussed. Marcus has full board support. I turned and looked at Derek and said, I don't believe I was speaking to you. Marcus said, Mom, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. And there it was. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. That sentence, spoken in that tone, patient, slightly condescending, the voice of someone who has already decided the outcome and is now just waiting for you to accept it, that sentence did something to me. It didn't break me. It clarified me. I felt something settle into place inside my chest, something cold and absolutely certain. I said, fine. I said it quietly. I picked up my materials and my bag. I said, I'll be in touch with Gerald about the paperwork. Marcus said he appreciated my professionalism. Security. A young man named Kevin, who I had hired 3 years earlier and who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor, walked me to the elevator. I drove home. The drive is about 22 minutes from the BPC offices to my house, and I remember every turn of it. I didn't cry until I pulled into my driveway. Then I sat in my car. And I cried for about 10 minutes, not for myself, exactly, but for Raymond. Because he had loved that company the way you love something you've bled for, and his son had just voted to expel his widow from it, and Raymond wasn't there to know that, and somehow that was the worst part. Then I went inside, made myself a cup of coffee, and called Gerald Hofstetter. Gerald is 71 years old and has been practicing business and intellectual property law in Columbus for nearly 4 decades. He has a manner that I can only describe as deliberately unimpressive. He speaks slowly, dresses conservatively, and gives you the impression that he is in no hurry whatsoever, and it has always served as effective camouflage for a mind that is exceptionally precise and not even slightly slow. I told him what had happened. There was a long pause. Carol, he said, do you remember what we did with the BPC retention system patent in 2004? I said I did. And you still have the documentation? I said I believed so, somewhere. I need you to go find it, he said. Tonight, if possible. I went to the small home office I'd maintained for years, the room where Raymond and I used to spread documents across the desk when we were working on contracts together. And I started going through the filing cabinet. I have always been, out of necessity, an organized person. Companies do not survive on optimism alone, they survive on organized people who keep good records. The cabinet had 4 drawers, labeled by year and category. And it took me about an hour and a half to find the folder I was looking for. It was a standard manila folder, slightly yellowed, labeled in Raymond's handwriting, BPCIP 2004 filings. Inside were the original patent registration documents, the ownership agreement between Raymond and me, and the licensing rights assignment that Gerald had prepared and that we had both signed. I sat at the desk in the light of the single lamp and I read through every page. The language was clear. The BPC retention system patent, registration number 7,284,159, was assigned exclusively to me, Carol and Beaumont, as a personal asset separate from any company interest. The licensing rights were mine to exercise, modify, or withdraw according to terms I controlled. The company held a license to use the technology, but that license had been structured as a personal license from me to the company, renewable by mutual agreement every 5 years. The last renewal had been in 2020. It was now 2023. The license was due for renewal. I called Gerald back and read him the relevant sections. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Carol, I need to ask you something important. When you signed your employment documents, when Marcus restructured your role after Raymond passed, did you sign anything that might have transferred any of your personal intellectual property rights to the company?" I said I honestly didn't know, and that I'd need to look. "Find those documents too," he said. "But in the meantime, yes. If this is what I think it is, and if nothing superseded it, then the company's primary manufacturing line is operating on a license that you control and that is currently expired." I slept badly that night. Not from worry, exactly, but from a kind of buzzing alertness, the feeling of a situation coming slowly into focus after being blurry for a very long time. I kept thinking about that moment in the boardroom, Marcus's folded hands, Derek Pullman's calm explanation, the way they had planned this so carefully and missed the most fundamental thing. I'm not a vindictive person by nature. I want to be honest about that. But there was something almost darkly funny about it, in the way that something can be funny when it's also deeply serious. They had spent months engineering my removal. They had consulted outside strategists and legal teams. They had made their calculations. And none of them, not Marcus, not Derek Pullman, not whatever lawyers they had hired, none of them had thought to ask the most basic question: what does Carol actually own? I spent the next 3 days going through documents. I found my employment agreements from after Raymond's death, and with enormous relief discovered that I had not signed anything that transferred personal IP rights. Gerald had actually flagged a clause in the initial draft that would have done exactly that, and we had removed it. I also found correspondence from 2004 and 2005 confirming the original licensing structure, and 3 subsequent renewal agreements. Gerald and I met in person the following week. He brought in a colleague of his, a woman named Renata Vasquez, who specialized in patent enforcement and licensing, and the three of us spent an entire morning going through every document. Renata was thorough in the way that very good lawyers are thorough. She challenged every assumption, asked for everything in writing, and refused to give me hope until she was certain it was warranted. At the end of the morning, she folded her hands on the table and said, "Carol, barring something I'm not aware of, you own this. The license the company is operating under expired in March of 2022. They are currently in violation." I said, "What does that mean in practical terms?" She said, "It means that every unit of the BPC line they've manufactured and sold since March of last year was manufactured and sold without valid legal authority to use your patent. It means you have significant legal standing. And it means they need your cooperation to continue." I took a slow breath. I thought about Raymond. I thought about 200 employees who had nothing to do with any boardroom politics and who had families and mortgages and lives built around those jobs. I thought about Marcus, not with anger, in that moment, but with something closer to sorrow. He had made choices. He was going to have to live with them. But I was not willing to let those choices destroy what Raymond and I had built. I told Gerald and Renata to say nothing. I told them I needed time to think and to plan. I said I did not want to act precipitously. Renata looked at me with a slight smile and said, "Mrs. Beaumont, I think you may be the calmest client I've ever had." I told her I had been through worse, and that patience had served me better in life than urgency. Over the next several weeks, I did something that I found oddly comforting. I went back to work. Not at BPC, obviously, I was no longer welcome there. But I began working on the updated retention system I'd been developing, the EV-focused refinement. I hired a small engineering consultant I trusted, a woman named Grace Okafor, who had been one of our best R&D people before she'd gone independent, and we began quietly developing the next generation of the technology. I also began having conversations, careful, exploratory conversations, with two of BPC's largest competitors in the industrial fastener space, as well as with two of the EV suppliers I'd been planning to approach with BPC. I introduced myself as a private inventor and patent holder exploring licensing options. The conversations were, to put it mildly, encouraging. Meanwhile, from the outside, I watched BPC prepare for what Marcus had announced as the company's most significant product launch in a decade. They were going to market the retention system under a rebrand, calling it the BPC ProLock series, with a massive promotional push timed to a major automotive industry trade show in September. They had pre-sold significant production volume. Retail and wholesale distributors were lined up. Investors were excited. Marcus had given a widely circulated interview to an industry publication in which he talked about BPC's innovation-driven future without, as far as I could tell, a single mention of the technology's origins. The following weeks were what I can only describe as a slow-motion corporate emergency. BPC had to halt manufacturing on the Prologue series, which meant they couldn't fulfill the pre-sale commitments they'd made to distributors. The trade show in September became a fiasco. They had nothing to show, and the absence was conspicuous. Investors who had been told about the launch began asking questions that Marcus and Derek couldn't answer satisfactorily without revealing the patent situation, which they were desperate to keep quiet. Which meant the answers they gave sounded evasive and alarmed people further. There were articles in 2 trade publications speculating about supply chain disruptions and unexpected regulatory hurdles at BPC. The company's stock, they had taken on minority private equity investment the previous year, which meant there were now shareholders with opinions, dropped significantly. Howard Blaine's office sent 3 separate letters to Gerald over the course of 6 weeks. The first one challenged the licensing structure and suggested the rights had been implicitly transferred to the company through my employment. Renata disposed of that argument in a response so precise it was almost elegant. The second letter offered to purchase the patent outright for what I can only describe as an insulting amount of money, significantly below its actual market value and not remotely close to what it would be worth over the next decade in the EV market alone. The third letter asked if we could schedule a call to discuss creative solutions. I told Gerald to accept the call. It happened on a Wednesday morning in October, 3 months after the initial letter. On their side, Marcus, Derek Pullman, Howard Blaine, and one of the outside attorneys they'd brought in. On my side, Gerald, Renata, and me. We were in Gerald's conference room. They were on a speaker phone that kept cutting out slightly, which I thought was appropriate. Marcus spoke first. He said, "Mom, I think we should." Renata very gently placed her hand on my arm, and I let her speak first. She laid out our position clearly and without drama. The patent was mine. The license had expired. The company owed licensing fees for the period of unauthorized use, which Renata calculated at a figure that made Howard Blaine audibly inhale. In order to resume manufacturing, the company needed a new licensing agreement with me. The terms of that agreement were mine to set. There was a long pause. Marcus said, "What do you want, Mom?" I had thought about this question for months. I had thought about it in terms of anger, and I had moved through that. I had thought about it in terms of pure financial maximization, and while the money mattered and I intended to be fairly compensated, that wasn't the whole answer either. I had thought about Raymond, and what he would have wanted, and I believed I knew the answer to that with some clarity. Raymond had built that company because he loved the work and because he cared about the people who did it with him. He would not have wanted it burned down. He would not have wanted 200 people to lose their jobs. But he also, I know this, I knew him completely, he would not have wanted his life's work handed to people who treated it like a transaction. I said, I'll license the technology back to the company. I'll set the licensing fee at fair market rate, which Renata has documented. I'll provide a 10-year renewable agreement to give the company stability. I paused. In exchange, I said, Marcus steps down as CEO. Dead silence. I want an independent board majority. No executives Marcus has personally installed. I want an executive search for a new CEO who has actual manufacturing experience. And I want the employees' pension contributions, which I've been informed have been underfunded for the last 2 years, brought into full compliance within 90 days. Another silence. Then Marcus said, very quietly, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious, I said. You can verify the pension situation with your HR records. And you know the rest. Howard Blaine said they would need time to consult. Renata said that was fine, but that every day of manufacturing delay was accumulating. Additional damages exposure. They called back in 4 days. The emergency board meeting happened on the first Friday in November. I attended in person. So did Gerald and Renata. So did Sandra Chu and Bill Hargrove, the 2 original board members. Marcus was there. Derek Pullman was conspicuously absent. I learned later that he had quietly resigned the week before. The room had the particular atmosphere of a gathering where everyone knows what is going to happen but no one has said it out loud yet. Renata presented the patent documentation, the licensing history, the legal analysis, and our proposed terms. She took 45 minutes and answered every question calmly and completely. Howard Blaine had brought in his outside counsel, who raised several points, all of which Renata had anticipated and had responses for. At one point the outside attorney argued that the original licensing structure had been established under circumstances that were arguably coercive to the company, and Renata looked at him with an expression of such serene patience that he actually stopped mid-sentence. At the end of the presentations, the board voted. The new licensing agreement passed unanimously. Marcus's resignation, framed in the announcement as a transition to a strategic advisory role, which I found grimly amusing given the language he had used with me 9 months earlier, was accepted unanimously. The pension compliance requirement was included in the resolution. Marcus and I didn't speak during the meeting. Afterward, in the hallway, as people were filing out and Gerald was talking to Sandra Chu about logistics, Marcus stopped beside me. He looked tired. He looked, if I'm honest, like he looked when he was a boy and had done something wrong and knew it and was trying to figure out how to be in the world with that knowledge. He said, "Mom, I'm sorry." I looked at him for a moment. My son. The boy I had raised in the break room of our shop, who had eaten his first birthday cake off a paper plate while Raymond and I laughed and the machinists clapped. The man who had sat across a conference table and told me security would walk me out. I said, "I know you are." I said, "I need you to understand something. I didn't do this to hurt you. I did this because your father and I built something that matters, and you were about to hand it to people who were going to strip it for parts. Those 200 employees have families. The company has value beyond what a private equity acquisition would have returned." He was quiet. I said, "You can still have a life, Marcus. You can still build something. But you needed to learn that the shortcuts cost more than the long way around." He nodded. He didn't have anything to say to that, which I think meant he understood. BPC brought in a new CEO in January, a woman named Diane Forsyth who had spent 20 years in aerospace manufacturing and who called me in her first week to ask about the technology history and what I thought its future applications were. That conversation lasted 2 hours. It was the best conversation I'd had about the work since Raymond died. I licensed the updated EV-focused retention system to 3 separate manufacturers in early 2024, which produced income that surprised even Gerald. I retained Grace Okafor on a permanent consulting basis. I started going to the office occasionally, not BPC, but a small studio space I rented near my house, and I found that working on my own terms, was something I'd missed more than I knew. I won't tell you that what happened with Marcus resolved cleanly. Families don't resolve cleanly. We have dinner sometimes, the 3 of us, Marcus, Brittany, and me, and it's not easy, but it's honest, which is more than it was before. He's working in consulting now, advising small manufacturing businesses on operations. He's actually good at it, I think. Without Derek Pullman whispering in one ear and Brittany in the other, he might find his way. Back to something closer to who he used to be? I don't know. I hope so. What I know is this: I spent 32 years building something with the person I loved most in the world, and when people tried to take it from me, I was ready. Not because I had planned it that way, I hadn't. Not because I'm ruthless, I'm not. But because I had paid attention. Because Raymond and I had been careful with the things that mattered. Because I had kept good records in a manila folder in a filing cabinet in the home office where we used to spread contracts across the desk late at night while Marcus slept in the back of the house. People ask me sometimes if I feel guilty about what happened to Marcus. About the very public nature of his fall, the industry coverage, the way his name appeared in trade articles. Beside words like mismanagement and leadership failure, I sit with that question honestly. And what I come back to, every time, is this: I didn't do anything to Marcus. Marcus made his choices. I made mine. He chose to remove his mother from the company she had built. I chose to enforce the agreements that had been in place for 20 years. He chose to surround himself with people who told him what he wanted to hear. I chose to work with people who told me the truth. The thing about power, real power, the kind that lasts, is that it isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself in boardrooms. It doesn't fold its hands across conference tables and tell people that security will walk them out. It sits quietly in a manila folder in a filing cabinet, and it waits, and it is still there long after the people who thought they had you have forgotten to be afraid. Raymond always said the secret to building anything that lasts is to never confuse what's urgent with what's important. The people trying to push you out are always urgent. The things worth protecting are always important. Keep your eyes on the important things. I kept mine. That made all the difference. I think about him every day. I think about the way he used to sit at the kitchen table with his sketches and his calculations, completely absorbed, completely alive inside the problem he was solving. I think about the company we built from nothing, from a leased space and a second-hand machine and an absolute refusal to quit. I think about the first time we saw our product installed in a vehicle and it worked exactly the way Raymond said it would, and we stood there in the factory and Raymond took my hand and didn't say anything, because there wasn't anything to say. That's what I was protecting. Not the revenue. Not the licensing fees. Not even my own pride, though I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of it. I was protecting the thing Raymond and I made, and the people who made it with us, and the idea that the work was worth more than any single person's ambition. I wasn't born yesterday. I know how these stories are supposed to go. the old woman is sidelined, the young ambitious son takes over, the company moves on and nobody remembers who started it. I've seen that story 100 times. But here's the thing about that story. It only works if the old woman forgets what she owns. I didn't forget. And now you know the rest. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the things you've built and the people who helped you build them, leave a comment below. And if you know someone who needs to hear it, someone who's been pushed aside, someone who's doubting whether their patience will ever pay off, share this with them. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is remind them that quiet and determined wins over loud and careless every single time.